Welcome back, my fellow patriots, to the Save Our Republic Daily video series. Today we are continuing our exploration of the Bill of Rights. We are now to Amendment 8. This is one that you probably have heard about, but maybe not know as much as you like. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So there's three major provisions. First is excessive bail. Now, for those of you that have not been blessed with the opportunity to participate in our criminal justice system in one way or another, what happens is if you are accused of a crime, typically a judge will set a bail for you that is intended to ensure that you will appear during the course of the criminal proceedings. So let's say you are arrested for driving while with a suspended license. Not the most grievous kind of criminal case in the world. Might be a misdemeanor. Maybe you could be fined $500 or something. The judge would then set a bond for you to appear to make sure that you come back to be arraigned and to have a conference and perhaps go to trial, whatever it might be. And just to give a ludicrous example, if the judge said $1 million, you have to post $1 million, or you have to be remanded into custody pending your next court date. That would seem to be pretty ludicrous because $1 million in light of a small misdemeanor violation that's common and didn't hurt anybody would seem to be pretty egregious. To flip that, if somebody was accused of first-degree murder and you said you are free to go on your personal recognizance, you don't have to post any bond, that would not violate the Constitution. It doesn't work in the other way, even though most people might think that unless there's some extenuating circumstance that we can't really think about right now, that would tend to be a ludicrous bond, but it would be in favor of the defendant, and therefore it would not violate the Constitution. So the idea is that when you have various kinds of charges brought before you, the bond should be reasonable in light of the gravity of the charges. And sometimes there's a number of things that are taken into consideration, like your ties to the community, your occupation. Are you employed right now within the community? Do you live in the community where the alleged crime occurred? The likelihood of success that you'd be convicted. Do you have drug or alcohol issues? A whole slew of factors can be taken into consideration. Have you failed to appear for a court case in the past, etc.? So you kind of balance all those things, and we just don't want to throw people in jail without there being a good reason for that, and that would be excessive bail. The second is nor excessive fines imposed. So somebody is convicted of a crime, and let's say, again, let's say marijuana, which is marijuana use in a state where it's still illegal, and you're caught with a small marijuana cigarette and you're convicted, and they say, okay, $500 million or $25,000, something like that. That would seem to be excessive in light of the alleged crime, and therefore it would be unconstitutional. And it continues, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. So some obvious examples of this would be torture, thumb screws, burning somebody with scalding hot water, branding them. There's a whole set of things that we would consider to be cruel and also unusual, which would mean that it's really kind of an out of the blue, weird, bizarre punishment that nobody has ever faced before. And this is interesting because this really is one of the few places in the Constitution where the constitutional standards may change with the culture. And what do I mean by that? Well, usually there's a fight over whether or not, in constitutional circles, about whether or not the Constitution is fixed, usually determined by the original understanding of the Constitution, either by the people or by the framers or the ratifiers. There's a kind of debate about that. Or can it evolve? Is there a living spirit to the Constitution, so to speak, that means it can change its meaning over time? Well, most people have interpreted this particular provision because it says unusual and cruel. That what's cruel and unusual today may be something different than what was cruel and unusual in the past. So perhaps somebody was convicted of what today would be considered to be a petty offense, like prostitution, and maybe in the past that was seen as such a violation of the moral ethics and code that they would be put in prison for a year for that, or even longer, or a small amount of drugs, whatever it might be. And today that would be viewed very differently. And some real life examples, murder and rape and armed robbery and a whole bunch of other offenses could be punishable by death. And over time, the death penalties become less and less common, and therefore it's basically impermissible unless somebody is murdered. And usually it means somebody is murdered in pretty egregious circumstances. So armed robbery and other assaultive crimes that fall short of murder, those now are considered to be, to inflict capital punishment, were considered to be cruel and unusual. Similarly, there was a recent case dealing with people of a certain age, minors. Let's say you were 16 and you committed first-degree murder, you could still be executed for that. And the Supreme Court has ruled, nope, not in today's society. That's cruel and unusual. People with disabilities, mental handicaps, things like that, also considered to be cruel and unusual punishment. So it has changed with the times. And presumably it changes, the other way. And something that we might consider to be cruel today might not be cruel in a future point. So the point of the Eighth Amendment is to ensure that justice is done fairly and proportionally to the circumstances surrounding the alleged crimes and dealing with bail, excessive fines, and cruel and unusual punishments. Until next time, don't forget about America's Survival Guide at americasurvivalguide.com, Patriot Week at patriotweek.org, and the Patriot Lessons American History and Civics podcast. If you're enjoying this, please like, subscribe, and share. God bless you, and God bless America.